Hello again, everyone, and welcome to this episode of The Lightkeeper, which I think we'll call part two. I originally recorded this, and when I recorded it, played some of it back to, do the uh, mandatory quality check. Everything sounded great. And then I uploaded it, and lo and behold, it published today. And I want to apologize to everyone who has happened to have listened, if anybody re listens. There was some incredible, horrible, hissy, feedbacky sound that was there. And when I went to retrieve the copy of that, saved to, that wonderful thing that floats above us all, the cloud, surprise, it wasn't there. And then when I found it on my hard drive, it said it was corrupted. So, with all of that fun and excitement out of the way, um, we are going to talk about positivity. After a positively um, great learning experience I had with this podcast, we'll keep the positivity going. And it's things like this that kind of do bring home the point of being positive. I could look at it as being upset with myself. I published a podcast that was really horrible. It was unlistenable. And yet I didn't. I sat down, tried to figure out what's wrong, checked my equipment to the best of my limited technology abilities, and everything seems to be working fine. So we're going to re record it. I hope it comes out decently. I really enjoyed what I thought I had created when I originally sat down to do this. In fact, when I sat down to do the Positively Positive podcast, it was on National Positivity Day. So that was just like fabulous coincidence. But let's keep the positive things going. There's really nothing new or exciting in my world other than I am working too much again. I've got to find my work life balance again, especially before hockey season kicks off in less than a month now. So I'm looking forward to that. And the other thing I'm looking forward to is that on this re recording day, it is 8 days from my birthday. So I am looking forward to my birthday celebration. No, I'm not looking forward to any amazing gifts. Um, I received an amazing gift, actually. My big TV decided that it was going to give up the ghost, and it happened on a Friday night. And in my world, typically Saturday early afternoon, my dad and I get together for lunch, catch up on our weeks, and just enjoy some time together. He is retired, but busier than ever, so I really look forward to our Saturday lunches. So since the TV decided to, you know, move on to a better place on a Friday night. While we were at lunch, I asked my dad if he wanted to tag along with me to Best Buy while I looked at TVs. And he said, well, I've got a membership at Sam's. Why don't we start there and see whether there's a better deal there? So we went off to Sam's, and surprise, um, while I was still looking at TVs, he picked one out and got it for me for my birthday. So I actually have a new, bigger than I had before TV with an amazing picture and an amazing unexpected birthday gift, which really kind of makes it all the sweeter. So that's, I guess, the excitement in my life. I hope you are having something amazing in your life, and I hope that you have somebody that does something unexpected for you. And if not, do something unexpected for somebody else. Now, I'm not suggesting you go out and buy them a new TV. But just maybe buy them a coffee or just listen when they need to talk. Little things, really, little things matter. Little things really make a difference with our own positivity on a day-to-day basis. So, without any further ado, let's actually get into positivity and how it can sometimes be a challenge in the lifestyle to keep a positive mind frame and to keep a positive outlook. And we're also going to look at to start with what often causes the negativity that sometimes can seem overwhelming in the lifestyle community. So that is where we're going to start this lovely podcast. So let's start with looking at what causes some of the negativity that we find online. So one of the things about the lifestyle that is makes it really attractive, especially online to people, is that there is an anonymity to it. If you are new, just starting out, it can be quite challenging to kind of reveal yourself. And the internet allows us to shield our true identities, kind of like a superhero's alter ego. We can be our own kinky Clark Kent, if you will, or put on our Clark Kent glasses. And presto, no one recognizes who we are in the in our real lives, which gives us that anonymity, which gives us the confidence to look into things that, well, let's face it, society in general says might be taboo, or we shouldn't have an interest in them, or they might go against some of the values we grew up or had preached to us or have preached to us still. And so we're trying to handle our desires and wants, and the anonymity of the internet allows us to do that. The problem is a lot of the communication online is written. Obviously, it's words. Um, you don't get context when you read words. That's why sometimes when somebody thinks they've made the ultimate funny, sarcastic comeback in your DMs, you read it and you don't see it as sarcastic. You see it as, whoa, I thought we were friendly and you're being a troll. So the fact that we take a sense of, well, all the things that you get when you have face-to-face communication. We don't see body language, we don't see the look in somebody's eye, and we certainly don't hear the tone of their voice. I am sure that listening to this podcast, you can pick up on some of those changes in tones, or at least I hope so. If not, I'm doing a horrible job, which, I'm just hoping for fair to medium. So I hope no one's putting me in that horrible area. But that lack of context that gets kind of lost in translation. I guess we can cue the Bill Murray movie. But when we are dealing with just text, we do lose nuances, emotions, and even intentions. So that can lead to miscommunications. Miscommunications lead to misrepresentations, which can lead to hurt feelings. Hurt feelings lead to negativity, and presto, you can see how we're rolling into something that is negative and not so fun, pleasing, or anything along that line. And the other problem that happens when we have anonymity is, for whatever reason, it's very easy to forget that, oh my goodness, there is a person behind that screen name. That's a real person. It's not just some random name, not some AI bot that is interacting with us that has no feelings, but there's an honest to goodness living, breathing human there. So I don't quite understand it, but for whatever reason, when humans get the ability to be anonymous, sometimes there are certain ones in this wonderful human race where that anonymity suddenly brings out just a mean and nasty streak. And of course, mean and nasty leads to negativity. So the anonymity that we crave, especially if you're new and on the internet, that anonymity that's so important can lead to miscommunication. And that same anonymity somehow causes people to go off the rails. So what happens when we run into a moment where we have a miscommunication or a misinterpretation because we didn't catch the nuances and we didn't catch the emotion behind the written word, and it's lost in that translation? The biggest thing to do is we have to kind of advocate for ourselves. We have to stand up and say, "Hey, what did you mean with that? It came across, I'm reading it this way. Is that what you meant?" And it's not often easy to ask for clarification, but we need to, because if we don't get that clarification, we don't know. And oftentimes people don't mean the way we interpreted it. so that clarification can clear the air and we can come to an understanding. So it's very important to advocate for yourself. And when you do have a communication that suddenly went from nice and friendly to, oh my God, why is this person suddenly being a twat waffle? Ask, hey, I am interpreting what you said as this. Now, sometimes we are going to run into one of those trolls that loves the anonymity because they can say and do mean things. And there's no way to fix that other than there is a wonderful, wonderful tool that is included in all of our social networking. Every social network that I know of has it, and we need to use it. And it's called the block button. If somebody's being an idiot just to be an idiot, hit the block button and move on. And do our best to put their hurtful words behind us. So that's one of the reasons that causes the issues with the online community, fostering some of that negativity. Another one comes out of clicks, and clicks of themselves. I mean, they happen. We all kind of develop a circle, whether it's in person, it's online, or it's a combination of online friends and real world friends, and sometimes they cross over, and online friends become real world friends, and it's fantastic. But in the community, we can kind of seek and find ourselves in echo chambers where everybody's kind of preaching to the choir. And while these groups are great because they give us a sense of belonging, um, they also can cause a little negativity themselves. And it's because when we engage with those people that are in our online circles, it can be easy to forget about people who are new to the group, people that are outside of that circle, um, or sometimes even, unfortunately, some groups will be clicky and sort of get a little us versus them mentality if someone sees things differently, which the DS lifestyle is a place where a lot of people see a lot of things differently. A lot of people see things similarly, but there's, no right or wrong way to get your kink on as long as it's consensual, as long as you're doing it in a safer manner and you're doing in what fits you. So a lot of times people, when they see somebody who's doing something different, rather than embrace their differences and say, that's great that you practice this way. I don't, but that's awesome. It works for you. Rather than saying that's awesome and it works for you, they kind of develop that echo chamber creates a place where people create that us versus them mentality, and oh, they do it differently. They're one of them, and we must go after them or we must shun them. And that, of course, continues to grow negativity. So it's very important that we choose our circle wisely and we endeavor to reach out outside of that circle if we are in online groups to make sure that we personally are welcoming in new people and that we respect people who practice and do things differently. So it's very important to have inclusivity. I think you know what I mean. We're not even going to try to pronounce that again, but that we include everyone and that we kind of work to keep the us versus them mentality from coming out, even if somebody's a part of a group that's like their rival group or you know, VS shouldn't be like a land, the online community shouldn't be like a land of cyber bike gangs where, you feud with one bike gang and you go after them and they go after you. It should be, we need to focus on an environment that welcomes everyone, regardless of whether we're different and how we're different. So it's important to keep that in mind. And really, even though it's a group thing, it's an us thing, it's an individual thing because it's on all of us to behave in a way that is welcoming and kind. And sometimes we do have to step away from people that can't or won't do that. Another area online, and this is something that typically is more seen among the dominance of the online world, for whatever reasons, there can be power struggles. I don't know why, but it's almost like a game of one-upmanship that goes on, or sometimes dominants feel that they're threatened by another dominant rather than embracing the fact that another dominant practices things differently or has some new ideas. And it's a potential learning opportunity. Sometimes interactions between dominants can get very kind of catty, and these little disputes quickly will roll out into the open, spilling over into public forums, into your groups, into your Discord, sowing Discord, and which breeds negativity. Um, and this is where it's important that if you are in part of an online group, that you have moderators that are they're unafraid. They are willing to step in and say, "Hey, you go to your corner, you go to your corner, cool off, and then we will talk about this together." Or if there isn't a moderator like that and you really like your group and you notice this happening, it's once again, it's an individual thing. We've got to step up and say, hey, you guys are behaving like twat waffles. You go to your corner, you go to your corner, calm down, cool off, and behave like good, decent humans. Um, so the other part of that is if you're a dominant and if you for whatever reason have an issue with somebody else in the group, dominant, submissive, switched, or hey, I'm new here, I don't even know what the heck I am, I'm just trying to figure all this stuff out. Um, and there's an issue, you handle it like an adult and you talk directly to that person. You talk to them, not at them, and you listen and you find common ground. It's it's essentially resolving a conflict, even if there might not fully be a conflict yet. Um, it's taking accountability for your actions. And I know we live in a world where nothing is anybody's fault. I mean, nothing is. I mean, everybody has an excuse for everything now, rather than just simply saying, hey, I screwed up. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I made this mistake, and that mistake, in learning from them and owning them. So it's so important that we resolve conflict and that we behave as adults. And once again, that's something that really we all have to do. It's nothing that we can expect other people to do if we won't do it ourselves. Um, Another thing that happens, DS is very emotional, right? It provokes strong emotions, good, bad, indifferent even can be a strong indifference where a meh is really a yeah, I really, don't feel like dealing with that today. But it also brings about wonderful supporting people you meet, supporting groups, supporting websites. I mean, there's a whole slew of wonderful support, understanding, and acceptance that's out there, which when you couple that with really the heightened emotional things that go on with the lifestyle leaves us all kind of emotionally vulnerable. And being vulnerable emotionally means that comments that maybe if we were, say, having a great day, we were happy go lucky, things were rolling our way, we could let something kind of roll off our back like a duck does with water. But there are other times when we're really vulnerable emotionally, and a hurtful comment or a hurtful action can really be extra hurtful. I don't think that's great grammar, extra hurtful, but it can be. And so it's very important that we think before we type, or if you are a fellow podcaster, think before you speak, and try to make sure that your words, written, spoken, or otherwise, are positive and not hurtful. Even when we're replying in a group discussion, a group chat, with our text, make sure take a second before you hit that send button. I I learned that lesson, myself. Sometimes we hit the send button, and then when we look back, whether it's 5 minutes, 5 days, 5 years, whatever it is, we look back and we say, "Wow, I should have hit mute on myself and come up with a better way to say that because my response was not helpful and, in fact, could have been hurtful. So it's very important that we bear in mind that when we're communicating, especially in a group setting or even a part of the larger community where we're sharing something on perhaps your Facebook page or your FetLife page, to try and keep what you're sharing as positive. And even if you're sharing something that isn't necessarily positive, make sure that what we're sharing is not hurtful to other people. So it's once again, it falls upon each of us to be that positive beacon that we want in the lifestyle. Um, Another thing that happens is that we have people that judge us because we are kinky or that we're into BDSM or that we like DS or whatever it is. If you're, for example, poly, there are so many people out in this world that are going to judge us, that have stigmas and stereotypes because of the choices that either we've made for ourselves or we're considering making for ourselves. And that can seep into the community. It causes people to get defensive. Um, and when we get defensive, it can be isolating, or we can isolate people. And all of that breeds our ugly friend negativity. So it's very important that we keep educating ourselves about the lifestyle so we can better understand it, so we can unfortunately better understand when we run into stereotypes and how to address them, because the knowledge is power, and the more knowledge we have, the easier we can address a stereotype, or even if it's with somebody that isn't worth engaging with, we can understand where their flawed thinking comes from and allow their criticisms to not impact us, our moods, or our positive outlook. Um, and then finally, well, not finally, we're not at the end of the podcast yet. I know maybe you're secretly hoping it is. But one of the bigger problems that exist in the online world, and this is true no matter what your role, it's more something that gets talked about more often with dominance, where it's instant mastery. And it's not just mastery as in a dominant taking the title of master 2 days after he discovered BDSM on Reddit. Um, it's goes across, like I said, all roles, all genders, all of those things. But it's a kind of I know it all mentality. And the thing about the DS lifestyle is you'll never know it all. You will always be learning new things, even if it's learning new things about old things. You're always learning because the lifestyle is continuously changing, it's in a kind of continuous state of flux. There's always new ways to do things. There's always people that are looking at something that was done, well, it's always been done this way, and saying, well, I don't want to do it the way it's always been done because that doesn't work for me. This is what works for me. So it's a constant evolution. And that constant evolution, sometimes people get stuck in the past. I was a history major, so you can joke that perhaps because I'm a history major, I catch on after the fact. But history teaches us lessons, but unfortunately, there are people in this lifestyle that are stuck in the past, that refuse to see that the lifestyle is growing, it is changing, and it is evolving. And that promotes negativity when you're stuck in the mud and you're complaining about, you're sitting over there stuck in the mud with your horse-drawn carriage while everyone else is zipping by you in a wonderful hybrid or electric, brand new electric maximum range extravaganza car. And people, of course, get upset and angry that other people have moved into the world of hybrids, and their idea of a hybrid is a horse and a donkey together, perhaps. So that can lead to some negativity. And the important thing to do, in my opinion, is to not become stuck in the mud with outdated thinking on the lifestyle. Keep your education current. Continue your education. Um, if you're listening around the world, teachers in the United States are required to keep current on their education, to do so many hours of continuing education, just as doctors are, attorneys are, accountants, various professions like that have the continuing education requirement. And it's well, there is no requirements in this kinktastic world, but it's a challenge or a requirement we should put upon ourselves to keep educating ourselves, to keep learning, to keep growing, and not become stuck in the mud with the old ways. Um, and we talked about it briefly before, but trolling. When you run across somebody who is a blatant troll or even being harassing, don't even bother engaging with them. Hit the block button and move on. Because trolls got to troll. They got to do their thing. And we can't fix them. We can't correct them. We can't teach them. In fact, they're not there to be educated. They're not there to learn. Uh, They are there to harass, and somehow they take a pleasure in that. And so the best thing we can do is block them, forget them, and move on. Um, Another source of negativity within the DS community, we kind of talked about how sometimes dominance can kind of clash and cause a power struggle. And this, and it doesn't have to be dominance, like I said before, but this next one, while it doesn't have to be submissive, oftentimes is a trait that happens among some submissives in some lifestyle online settings, and it's a game of, for better, for lack of a better term, one-upmanship, where the submissives are competing for attention within the group. So it's a constant stream of posts or discussions where submissives are competing to get attention or to be validated. And so one submissive is getting more attention than the other, which causes the other to feel jealous, and then they lash out, and then the first one lashes back at them, and suddenly you have a cesspool of negativity erupting over something that's unconscious. It really shouldn't matter who's getting the most attention or whose post is getting the most likes or who has the bigger discussion group. Um, when we start to see that happen, we need to, reach out, if especially if it's in a group that we're a part of, and work to focus the negative attention that's going on and change it from a competition to a collaboration. Try and get the people that are fighting for their attention or their validation. Let's get everybody working together so we can collaborate on something rather than turning in this group discussion into a competition. And then we have something that happens to all of us, and this will be the final bit of things that I see as causing negativity in the lifestyle, and it's burnout. Sometimes life can really just drag us down, or we can get so busy that we don't have time for things. We burn out. And that happens. I am a notorious, like I said, overworker. Tonight, my workday didn't end until after 8 p.m. So, quick math, that's a 13 and a half hour day or so I put in today. Now, if I keep doing that to myself, I burn out. And it happens to people in all walks of life. And it even happens in the lifestyle. We can start to feel stressed in our everyday life, or even sometimes we can be surrounded by negativity in the online community, which causes us to burn out on the online community because of negativity or stress in our daily lives. Um, just kind of carries over into the online community, and we get emotionally exhausted from it all. And when that happens, it's okay to take a break. It's okay to put a pause on your kinktastic social media. It's okay to step away from FetLife or to step away from your groups on Discord, or to just pause, step away, regroup, and when you're ready, return. There's nothing saying like the more emotionally exhausted you get, the more you should turn to kink. I've heard people preach that before, like, oh, you need to handle this by becoming more engaged. And then maybe take your engagement now, since you're really kind of struggling a little bit with exhaustion online. Go out and go to a munch tonight. And it's like they are one of those I don't know. I don't know if any of you have seen them before. Late night TV creatures where, the answer to everything is you need Jesus. And it's always, they always say Jesus like Jesus. And it's a good for entertainment, but they are sort of the evangelical kinksters. The more dire your circumstances, the more you need the more you need Diaz. The more you know, just it's okay to take a break and step away from it all, catch your breath, regroup, and when you're ready, return. So if you're feeling emotionally exhausted, step away because when we're emotionally exhausted, we can misinterpret things, which can easily cause negativity. And once again, we grow negativity within ourselves, in most cases unintentionally, because we are just emotionally spent. So when we get to that point, if you ever get to that point, self care, self care, self care. I won't try and say it like Jesus with the self care, but definitely practice self care. And it's okay if part of your self care needs is to take a break and to step away from things. So, with all of that said, how do we spot negative Nellies and negative Neds? How do we spot these people that spew negativity? Are there some ways to identify them? And there certainly are. And I'm not doing this to point out people or, you know, be negative myself, but just things that I've noticed in ways that we can perhaps nip getting emotionally vested into somebody who is just unfortunately a negative person. Before we get into this, I do want to say that I don't mean we should like abandon a friend who is having a rough patch and is feeling negative about things because life hasn't been treating them well. That's not the case at all. I am not suggesting that. But there are those people that are just perpetually negative for whatever reason. Everything is, they're Eeyores. Today's their birthday. It's probably gonna rain. Now, with my birthday 9 days away, the extended forecast says no rain, sunny day, which is fantastic. So I'm looking forward to that. So I won't have to be like Eeyore on my birthday because it's going to rain. But oftentimes you will see people who are constantly negative. When you're getting to know them, you're first starting to get to know them, everything is negative. And negativity breeds negativity, and like minds attract. So, unfortunately, negative people bring themselves together in groupings of more negative people, and it becomes like this whole big, huge noise of negativity. And the best thing to do is, if we can, if we see it right away, is to just politely step back and stay kind of at arm's length or more from people that are, in their negative clique. Another thing to watch for are people who, rather than disagree with someone, for example, if I said something in my podcast that you disagreed with, or you practice the DS lifestyle a different way than I do, I am 100% in favor of you saying to me, I don't do it that way. I understand where it works for you, but this is what works for me. That is fantastic. And you can have a discussion, and I can learn from them. They can learn from me, and we can all learn from each other. Unfortunately, online especially, people don't seem to always know how to do that. If somebody does something different than they do, they don't respond with, "Oh, I understand what you're saying," but they respond with, "You blankety blankety blank, fill in whatever hurtful, spiteful words you want to put there." They attack the person who is just different. They engage in personal attacks and hostility. So when you run across that, just stay away. It makes life easier and happier for you. Also, a lot of those same people are always argumentative. Everything's an argument. And not only is it an argument, they have to win that argument every time. They won't let it go until they feel that they are the winner. Now, there's no big prize for winning those arguments, not that I'm aware of. There's no pot of gold. It's just they're just arguing to argue because they want to argue and they want to win. Um, Another thing that's it's always, at least for me, it's hard to talk about um, because I don't want to sound like I'm like blaming a victim because this is not it. But there are people that have a continuous victim mentality where everything that happens to them in life, they are a victim of something else or somebody else. In a way, it's like a narcissist. I mean, everything that's bad that has happened to them isn't their fault. So when I say victim mentality, in a way, I'm pointing to kind of a narcissistic trend. Somebody who's has things happen to them in life that is never their fault. And of course, that leads to negative situations. And let's face it, we all don't need a narcissist in our life. We just don't. It is not a helpful situation. So let's step away from those people. And then there are those online that are um, self-promoters. Um, and there's a difference for me than, for example, posting on my Instagram a short video saying, "Hey, come check out my new podcast episode this week. It's on positivity." For me, where excessive self-promotion would be the person that says, "Oh, I see you asked this question. Buy my book for 20.99, and I've got the answer." Everything is about them or something that they have written, said, or done. Everything points to making a purchase, following their social media. It's all a giant self-promotion. It's not sharing. For example, I love the woman who does kinky history on Instagram. Um, Her stuff is fantastic. Her book has now come out in Australia and New Zealand, I believe. It hasn't hit the States yet, and I am so excited when it does or when it will. I can't wait to get it. But she does these little Instagram videos where it's like, "Oh, did you know in kink history that this happened?" Or that this member of the French royal family was into this kink or taboo thing. It's absolutely fantastic. It's great. Um, and of course, she does. She just wrote a book. She's going to talk about her book signing, and how awesome it is, and just. But she's not. It's not excessive self promotion in my book. She's just a person who's excited to share what she's passionate about, and she wrote a book on what she's passionate about, which is fantastic. And when that book does come out, I will definitely be highly suggestive that everyone who listens go buy it because she is absolutely fantastic. But the over the top self promoters typically also are negative. For whatever reason, the constant self promoters, in my experience in the lifestyle, they typically seem to think that their way is the right way. So they're self promoting their right way, the true way, their way. Almost once again, getting back to that Jesus type mentality. They're preaching their kinky Jesus at us and wanting to sell us their kinky Jesus, and everything revolves around their kinktastic Jesus. So that would be an individual to avoid because if you disagree with their 10 kink commandments, then yeah, there's a special place in hell for you. And maybe Satan made them do it. Anyway, um, so when we actually do have to deal with our negative folks, remember to stay calm and be respectful. Don't let their negativity or let their personal attacks drag you down, um, and just stay above the negatives with them. Sort of think of negativity as being underwater and we want to swim on top or fly as high above it as we can. So when we have to interact with them, stay calm, stay respectful, and don't put yourself in and it can be very easy to do, board your negative submarine and sink to their level. Just make it a point to not do that. Also, if you're going to talk to somebody about their behavior and it is a negative behavior that you're going to talk to them about it, always try to address the behavior and not the person. Don't turn it into you're attacking them for their negativity, but you're wanting to address their behavior, their negative behavior, and so that the interactions going forward can be more positive and uplifting. Also, when we're doing that, make sure we set boundaries so that when we communicate with them, they clearly understand what is not acceptable when they're interacting with us. Um, if you are in a group and you have moderators or group leaders or a leader of the pack, so to speak, obviously that would be a dominant who has a wolf picture as their profile picture somewhere on their social media or on FetLife. But if you are in a group and you are having issues with a negative person or negativity, talk to a moderator. They're there for a reason. And make them earn their keep to have that fancy mod logo next to their username. Um, Also, don't forget to practice disengagement. Sometimes we have to disengage with people that are negative. Sometimes we have to step back from it. Sometimes we have to say, I need to take a break from this group or take a break from a person. It's not always fun to have to reach those points, but for our own well-being, and in a way, it's self-care to disengage. At times, it's doing what is best for us, which is what self-care means. We can step away, we can disengage, and we can recharge ourselves. And finally, in everything we do, let's promote positivity. Let's be the change that we want to see. If we want more positive discussions, if we want more positive learning experiences, let's be that positive voice. Let's approach things from a positive angle. Even if we're talking about something that's not so fun or that's potentially a negative, let's try and find ways to turn that negative into a positive. So, I want to thank you all for listening. And no matter where you're listening, whatever app you're listening through, please go ahead and click that follow button so you know whenever a new episode of Chatting with the Lightkeeper drops, which is every Tuesday morning, by the way. And it's early Tuesday morning, New York City time. So if you are, um, say, you are down in New Zealand where spring is in the air, um, I'm not sure what time Tuesday morning, early New York time would be there. But anywho, for me, it's early Tuesday morning is when every podcast drops every week. So click that follow button so you never miss one. And I look forward to chatting with you again next week. And let's always be positive. Thanks for listening.